Hello everyone, my name is Artem Solovey, and today I'm going to be doing a short talk on solution development. So we briefly start with looking at the creative problem wheel. We see that stage one is problem finding. We lead with fact finding, problem definition, idea finding, evaluating and selecting your ideas. Then we look into solution implementation, where we start planning, acceptance, and the action on the solution that you made. Now, we see that at the stage between idea finding and evaluating and selecting ideas, there's a range of solutions that address this problem between these stages here. And that's what we're going to look into today. We see that solution formulation follows a sort of timeline. We start at the present state, which is the problem, and this is assuming that you've already defined the problem, and we want to end up at the state of the solution. And how do we get there? There's many different paths you can take. As you can see here, some of the paths will actually lead you to the solution. Some of the paths will take you very close, but not all the way. And some paths you take to getting to the solution might just be cut off due to certain barriers or certain things happening where you decide that that is not a viable path. And so the question becomes, should we perform an exhaustive search on all possible solutions? The short answer is no. So let's start with what we should not do. We should not pursue each possibility in depth. That will be a huge waste of resources. Imagine going down every single one of these paths, and most of those paths don't actually lead to the solution. That's a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of resources that you just simply don't have, and it's unnecessary. So we really want to eliminate some of them very quickly. We want to find out which of these paths are not going to work at all. So in that case, what should we do? We know that we have the start endpoint, which is the problem, and the final endpoint, which is the solution. So we want to develop a strategy that getting from the problem to the solution efficiently, and that's the goal here. So we see highlighted here are some few paths. Those are paths that don't end up at the desired state, which is solution. Two of them they get very close, and one of them gets cut off early. And so what do we do with these paths? We want to eliminate them. We want to eliminate all the paths that are impossible. And the question then becomes, how do we figure out these paths? There's a famous quote from Sherlock Holmes, paraphrased: if we eliminate all impossible paths, then whatever's left, however improbable, is a potential solution. And you can see that here. If we eliminate all the red paths, we don't know where the paths are going to lead, but we do know that there exists paths that will lead us to the solution. So we often don't know enough to be certain to eliminate a path, and this is a very common problem. So let's look at solution formulation. In solution formulation stage, we should not settle with one design option, because if you settle with one, it's like settling with one path. We don't exactly know which ones, if that path is going to end at the desired state, which is the solution. So in that case, we use logical thinking. It's needed in the stage of solution formulation, and it should help with creative thinking. So it's impossible to test all solution paths, but it's important to identify the infeasible paths and eliminate them as soon as possible. And as soon as possible might not mean right away, but as soon as you know when something's infeasible, you eliminate that path and you start looking at another one. There's also a famous quote: nothing is more dangerous than an idea when it's the only one you have. And that's critical here, because we're starting to see that the more ideas you have, the more potential paths you have to the solution. And the secret to having a good idea is having lots of them. So let's look at some tools for solution formulation. We see creative thinking, which is a process used to develop ideas that are unique, useful, and worthy of future elaboration. And with that, we have creative thinkers. And those are people who consider rejecting standardized formats for problem solving. Those are people that think outside the box and have an interest in a wide range of related and divergent fields. They take multiple perspectives on a problem and have a future orientation. And all of you are creative thinkers. And finally, we see that they have a self-confidence and trust in their own judgment, which is very important. I'm going to briefly touch on lateral and vertical thinking. Lateral thinking is a very traditional, vertical thinking is a very traditional way of thinking. It's very logic orientated. We see Osborne's checklist, which is taking something that you already have and changing certain elements of it, futuring as well, and it's a very common and straightforward path. Lateral thinking, on the other hand, is thinking outside the box. It's looking at other people's views. It's doing something unconventionally. But you need both of those for the brainstorming process. And let's talk a little bit more about that. What is brainstorming? Brainstorming is a tool used by teams for creative exploration of options in an environment free of criticism. And the key here is free of criticism. You get in a room with a group of people and you start spitting out ideas. You start thinking about one thing, then the other, but there's no criticism. No matter how crazy they get, that's more about the lateral thinking side. You have out-of-the-box ideas and you never know when they're going to work out and whether or not that path may actually be viable. There's lots of benefits for brainstorming. Creativity, larger number of ideas. All members of the team get involved and engaged. There's a sense of ownership in decisions. And there's input to other tools, such as what we mentioned, vertical and lateral thinking. Now, there are a few rules for brainstorming. The three of the main ones we have here are reducing social inhibitions that occur in groups, creating a dynamic synergy that will dramatically increase creativity product of the group, and we deal with some challenges associated with group ideation, right? So following those rules, we have a perfect recipe for brainstorming, and that will lead us to more ideas, as we saw the benefits of that earlier. So let's look at the don'ts for brainstorming. When you are brainstorming, don't stop after the first idea. Always keep going. Think about another idea and take some time. You don't have to rush this. This is something that you can ponder on, think about in a group, listen to what others are saying, and start building off each other's ideas. We want to evaluate and kill stupid ideas right away? No. That's what I was saying with lateral thinking. Those are out-of-the-box ideas. We don't know what's a stupid idea. It might seem stupid at first, but we may actually have that path, that idea, become the solution we're looking for. We don't want to self-filter. Don't think too much before sharing. Just start spitballing ideas. The more there are, as we've seen, the better it is. Talk and don't listen. Completely wrong. We want to listen and talk as well, but we want to first listen to what other people are saying. We don't want to expand too much on an idea. We just want to have an abstract. This is just a brainstorming, that the first stage of let's get the ideas out there and then we'll look into them. Don't trust your memory. Don't write things down. Just really, or in this case, we do want to write things down, and we really want to have those ideas on paper. If you think of something, don't keep it in. Put it down, put it on a sticky note, on a piece of paper, and start spitballing and sharing it with the group. We also don't want to only stick to safe, boring, and incremental ideas. Again, back to lateral thinking. We want to think outside the box. We want to look at other people's views, etc. So the brainstorming process goes as follows. We identify the problem statement or a component of the problem statement. Each individual writes down ideas on paper or a sticky note. Then everyone from the group brings their ideas and groups them and clarifies on them. Similar ideas are combined, duplicates are of course eliminated, and additional ideas are continuously added. So after this stage of individuals writing down ideas on a piece of paper, they can still continue writing things down. And that's because they might have seen someone else's idea and be like, oh, that gives me another thought. What if we do this? And that really helps with generating a lot of ideas. Once that process is done, we look at the ideas, we vote on them, and we ask the group to rank them and see which one we want to proceed with. And this process can be repeated multiple times, because after the voting stage, we may want to come back and start iterating and looking at more ideas based on what's already been put up. So I'm going to finish off with looking at the creative problem wheel again. We've seen that the different stages from 1 to 8, and in the idea finding stage, that's where brainstorming is the key. This is the place where you're going to be gathering as many ideas as you can, using vertical, lateral thinking, no judgment, and doing that in a group and building off each other's ideas and having this whole engagement and communication going on to then evaluate and select as we've seen in the process of brainstorming. So I'm going to leave this off here. Thank you everyone for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this talk.